Give me your geopolitical. What could possibly happen
So
aside from them finishing the job on Trump that would prevent him
yeah.
from winning?
So at this point, I think Trump has basically played every single card that he can in his arsenal. He's already picked a vice president. He even played cards he didn't know he had, surviving an assassination attempt, right? Like the cult of personality is insanely strong. At this point, he's just on coast for the next 3 months. Something has to happen that is of the same magnitude as what happened on the 11th in order for, Trump to have something. Like, there's 34 felony charges that he now owes $350 million worth of funds or in fines to New York State. He's been shot 8 less times than 50 Cent, and it earned him an endorsement from 50 Cent himself. You know, he picked JD Vance, and we can get into that. I think as far as like the Trump campaign is concerned, he was in a position where he had to decide between making a strategic choice and a financial choice. And he chose JD Vance because he is fantastic when he gets in front of the news media. He really has a lot of poise when dealing with journalists, and Republican donors absolutely eat that crap up. They just love it, and they throw money at him.
Interesting.
He's got more access to larger donors. Granted, Trump was able to raise like some $200 million in campaign finance funds as soon as he got his 34 convictions within the span of like 3 weeks, which is absolutely unheard of. But those are all small donors anyway. So, I mean, the vast majority of it was from small donors, donations less than $500. So he's looking at, how can I raise $750 million for the campaign and also an additional, $500 million to pay off New York in order to keep this thing afloat for the next 3 months. That's the move with
JD Vance. So JD Vance is a financial move.
But because Trump is now on autopilot, the only thing Trump can do at this point is try to keep the lights on, keep the finances flowing. He needs cash flow. So the only thing Biden needs to focus on, or the Biden campaign needs to focus on, is appeasing 5 different demographics. So these are social justice advocates and progressive feminists, especially in the Rust Belt. These are Black Americans, basically everywhere there's a swing state, especially in Wisconsin and in Georgia. The Muslim population in Michigan. And then the last one is the Asian population in northern Georgia outside of Atlanta. The table is set for the 2 actors that can save Biden's campaign to come in and handle this. And those 2 people are Anthony Blinken and Barack Obama. Okay, Anthony Blinken is important because he is the linchpin for getting a ceasefire deal handled with Hamas and Israel. If he can get a ceasefire deal that makes everyone not happy, but just copacetic, if they can just keep the lights on, keep everyone from shooting each other, this will be perceived as a win with both the social justice advocacy crowd as well as the conservative Muslims who don't like the anti-Muslim rhetoric coming out of the far right.
Interesting.
Right? So those 2 people get happy when that happens. The problem, though, is this is orthogonally related to another desire of not necessarily social justice advocates per se, but specifically a faction of like liberal feminists. With liberal feminists, especially in the Rust Belt, they are very upset that that Biden has basically allowed Roe v. Wade to be rolled back and has effectively done nothing to handle any sort of abortion issue whatsoever. So, like, there's been no executive order. There's been no promise of action. There's been no hint of real any movement on the needle of, supporting Planned Parenthood, sponsoring NGOs that might push back on, on women's rights or anything of that matter. So as a result, they're also irritated. The problem with that, though, is that if you turn the dial up on one, the conservative Muslim population that might vote for Biden, if you turn the dial up there, then you irritate the other, because the conservative Muslims do not want abortion to be legal. They are very socially conservative about that.
Sure.
So by pleasing one of them, he will irritate the others, right?
Yeah. This is the fun of a Big Tent party, is that you have multiple competing coalitions.
Oh, and then the other one is
go ahead.
He has to stay the course for the older Asian population in Georgia on his bullishness against China, especially with the Korean population, which is like 3.5% of the Georgia population. It's a wildly high percentage of just Koreans. We're not even talking about like Chinese and Japanese and so on. The Korean population is huge in Georgia. So he's got to remain bullish on that while also not disrupting trade that might be coming through the Gulf of Mexico. But fiscally, they're also usually more liberal. So
that's fair.
They're kind of in the same boat, not the same culture, obviously, but in the same boat. Oh, that was the last one. That was the fifth one. Union workers. Rust Belt Union are mostly Catholic or very hardcore Protestant. So they're socially conservative, but they're also union. So they really like liberal fiscal policies. So there you go again with the problem of how do you deal with trying to satisfy both the progressive feminists and the liberal feminists and the social justice advocates, while also managing your socially conservative base.